Okay, Baruch Hashem. It looks like Tuesday night's class was too much light for everybody. It blew up and blew out because everybody disappeared. So it reminds me at home that like my parents always told me, "Wow, you're such a good catch," and then every girl like didn't want to be with me. This is like me and Benny. Benny's like, "Wow, that class was crazy," and then nobody comes back after that. Same, thank God. Same type of thing going on over here. So let's see. So we just started Baruch Hashem, the sixth Torah of the Likutey Moharan. Very deep Torah, very intense Torah. And it really goes to the essence of Breslov, the essence of how Rabbi Nachman's teachings came to being. That Rabbi Nachman said, if there was no Nasala, if there was no Rav Natan, there is no Rabbi Nachman. Now, this goes much deeper than it appears to be, even though we know that as history has bared on, it was almost prophetic for him to say such a thing, because we clearly see the impact that Rabbi Nachman has and is making in the world, and it's all b'schut that Rav Natan was by him from this Torah moving forward until the end of Rabbi Nachman's life. And then after he passed away at 38 years young, and Rav Natan continued for the rest of his life against all odds through fire and water to get this Torah out to as many people as he could. And now obviously the effect is the greatest it's ever been. But it goes much deeper than that. That is that rabbi and student are not two separate entities, but they're actually two parts of one whole. That is to say that really Rav Natan is a part of me. That really my student is a part of me. Just like Yoshua ben Nun was considered Mamish Moshe, even after Moshe passed away. And the sages said that why is it that the Torah only refers to Moshe as being dead after Yoshua died? And they say because as long as Yoshua was alive, it was mamash like Moshe was alive. Because they are one in the same entity. They're just two aspects of one whole. And so too, Rabbi Nachman, even before Rav Natan had a chance to even really taste the sweetness of Rabbeinu, he immediately already prophesied to him that he would be his Yoshua ben Nun, that he would be his lower light, who would be the cause, the vehicle for revealing all of the upper light, all of the transcendent light of the Tzaddik Yisod Olam of Rabbi Nachman Fega. And the Torah that he gave is this one. And he says there, Ki tzarich kol adam lema'et bichvod atzmo, u'harbot bichvod hamakom. That every person needs to minimize his own honor and to increase and to maximize the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav Natan actually said that Chazal teach us that there's three things that separate you from being a student. That your ability to receive Torah, you can't have these three things. One of them is the desire for lewd things. Another one is, I think it's, yeah, but not in this case, it's a different one. Okay, there was two things, and then the final one is arrogance. And he said, the tzaddik, the Rebbe, is so great, his love is so infinite, that even if you have those two things, he'll still let you be his student. The one thing the Rebbe cannot bear is arrogance. You cannot be a chassid of Rabbi Nachman if you're arrogant. And where did Rabbi Nachman, so to speak, put a stamp on this? On Yoshua, on Rav Natan's first, so to speak, big lesson. That is, he was already telling him that his ability to experience Kavod Elokim, which we're going to learn later in this lesson, is a reference to Moshe Rabbeinu, is only if he decreased his own honor, if he minimalized his own ego to the greatest degree possible, and through that he would be able to receive this. And therefore, we said that a person needs to not try to take credit for himself for things that he's doing, but he actually, mamish, has to flee from it, Rabbi Nachman says. He needs to run away from it. What's the reason? Because anytime that a person is looking for self-aggrandizement, is looking to bolster their own status and self via Twitter or Instagram, all social media platforms. I like how they use the word platforms. Everything is very official. I had this person, he came to my platform. Why don't you just say he came to my house? My platform. It was hopping off my platform. Okay. So now, when he does this, he's bound to be investigated, Rabbi Nachman says. Because everything which is limited, and we know that the ego is the archetype, it is the source of all limitation, is the ego. The ego is the manifestation of what was affected by Adam Arishon and Chava in the garden after their first error, and the Nachash was now not an external power which they had to contend with it, which at that point was not as big of a contention. But then afterwards, that the koach of the Nachash actually entered within them. That from now on, for the rest of history, until the coming of the Mashiach, we would have to deal with the koach of the Nachash, not external to us, but within ourselves, to the degree that we won't know which is us and which is him. Comes Chazal, comes the Hasidic masters, comes the Kabbalists to say, what was that zahuma? What was that poison? What was that thing that he injected into us, which we have to now contend with, that we don't know whether it's us or whether it's the poison? And comes the secret, it's the ego. And now we can understand how deep this is, because we really don't know the difference. How do I know if I'm my external self or I'm my internal self? How do I know if I'm my body or if I'm my soul? How do I know if it's how I'm projecting myself is who I am, or who I really am is who I am? That's a whole question. It's very difficult to know. And therefore, when a person is trying to embellish his external self, because it's limited, it's actually the archetype of limitation, it's the source of limitation is ego, automatically anything which is limited becomes subject to investigation. And therefore, if I want to obtain Hashem, Hashem is not limited. Hashem is not subject to investigation because he cannot be measured by the five senses. So how do I tap into that? I have to first nullify my ego. And then I can obtain what's called kavod Elokim. Now, lest somebody think to themselves, what's so great about the honor of Hashem? You know, the honor of Hashem. I want the honor of Hashem, that I'm willing, like we're going to see now, to get embarrassed constantly, to be tormented by others, to be poo-pooed on, and to take it without saying anything back. Just like you get kavod Elokim. However, we need to understand that the term kavod, says Kabbalah, is a code word for the Shekhinah. That the kavod of Hashem, the glory of Hashem, is the manifested light of Hashem. Meaning that the kavod Elokim is the Shekhinah is with you. So you get to experience Hashem in a tangible way in your mind, in your heart, in your life, when you flee from bolstering yourself. And obviously, this is the greatest good. There's no greater good than this. We're going to see it goes much, much deeper than that as time goes on. Now, Rabbi Nachman says that it's impossible for a Jew to move from the space of kavod malachim, the desire for wanting to be a king, which is the natural initial nature of man, that he wants that's the greatest thing in his mind, that when he is imagining himself, he's imagining himself in front of a room of people that they are like, wow, look at that guy, sweet haircut, you know? And then the whole thing going on, you imagine like, I'm the musician in the music video and I'm the guy playing the wicked solo and everybody's like, wow, that guy's awesome. And all the girls are coming up to me. Yeah, we like fantasize about this. We can't wait for this. And then we watch TV and we see literally the people who grew up, they never really grew up. And the 30, 40-year-olds, the celebrities, they literally live like that. They Makayim that dream. And they get up and they scream, oh, da, 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 da. I'm like God. Jesus. Yeah. By the way, just as a funny thing, I say, I mamish don't know anything that's going on. Everybody who knows me knows I haven't watched TV in a long time, and I don't know what's going on in media. But like I told Benny, when I got the phone for Tzion, so we can do the classes, I tried to use the internet so I could see if I had it. So I typed in Nachman, and in the Google spot, like I guess the image section is right next to the news section. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went to go get an image for the background for the phone. I pressed news by accident, and comes like a picture of Kim Kardashian or a news article that Kim Kardashian is rocking a Nana Nachman necklace, some type of
meditates in Yerushalayim
jewelry,
and says there that she does in that lashon.
Yeah,
that she has meditative prayer and based on the teachings of Allah.
Yeah, some interesting thing. But what I wanted to say was very interesting. I don't know if it ended up happening, but apparently her relationship's on the rocks. Very shocking. They got divorced. Yeah. So the news said there, apparently the biggest qualm that she was having was that she was connecting like through Rabbi Nachman teaching that he bodadu to Hashem. She didn't use the word Hashem, God, whatever. And that her husband thought he was God. And it was becoming a conflict for her. Some type of news article like that. It was very funny. But it goes to the heart of what we're talking about right here. So for sure, what is her husband subject to now? A lot of investigation. And you see that with celebrities, what's constantly happening? All day, every single day. Someone's like, this guy's a loser, this guy's a herb, this guy's a this, all day and night. Why is that happening? Kavod Malachim, the honor of kings. They have made themselves like Paro. So as a result, everybody's like, what's wrong with this guy? And he himself for sure is not happy. For sure is not happy. So too in our life, that despite what we're taught by society, the greatest joy comes from the person that he's not thinking about himself at all.
Wow, so the acre of social media is it's all about me.
And what makes a person anxious about him thinking about the future?
That's thinking about himself.
Right.
Yeah.
When he thinks about himself, thinks about his future, that makes anxiety and
100%.
ego.
Same thing with the past. I had told this story before. There was a person who came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, used to have private audiences with many, many people, and helped a lot of people. And one of them that came to him was very depressed and asked him, he said, I need to speak to the Rebbe. He got the Rebbe, they had an audience. He said, I'm like literally dying. I'm so sad. I'm in such pain and like, I don't know why. And it's Z. And the Rebbe told him, like was usually the case, that he didn't have so many words, but those words made their impact and that person would live with them, whatever it was. He said, I want you for the next year to stop whatever it is that you've been doing. And I want you to go volunteer at a food shelter for homeless people. And do that for a whole year and just see how you feel after. So he's like, but I'm depressed. I need like antidepressants. I need like therapy. I need a lot of help. He said, I think you're going to be good. Just do this. He's whatever. So he left and he decided, because obviously he was desperate. He was depressed. So he just started volunteering at a food shelter, and they didn't hear from him for a year. All of a sudden, he runs back in after a year with a big smile on his face. He said, I need to speak to the Rebbe. I need to speak to the Rebbe. He said, the Rebbe's not here. He said, I have to tell him he saved my life. He said, why? What happened? So he told him the whole story. He said, I literally started volunteering there, and I stopped being depressed. And then I realized why. Because I stopped thinking about myself. So there's a lot of potency in that very small story, and it's worth contemplating afterwards if you have a chance. But we see here that the cause of all suffering is limitation, and limitation reaches its apex with the ego.
That's where Yaakov Avinu more.
I mean, if you just think about it, if you think about it just on a, if we just bring our brains out for a second, you know, when you pass by a cemetery and you see people that have been buried there, let's say since like, I don't know, let's say the 1600s or something, or even the 1800s. How many of those people do you know?
None.
None. How many of those people does anybody know? Nobody knows any of them. Can you imagine if their whole entire lives, they were trying to get people to know them, and their whole entire, and now after everything's said and done and they work so hard, nobody knows them. And what are the chances we're not going to be in that group as well? Very slim. So you could work your whole entire life just to be known. And in effect, it's hevel, it's nothing. You have nothing from it. Or you can work towards knowing the knower. And then you're known forever. Yeah. I reached down deep. And that's Kavod Elokim. But for that, Rabbi Nachman says the person needs to experience teshuvah. Now, what is teshuvah? Teshuvah means I'm returning to my source. I'm returning to reality. I'm returning to Hashem.
Consciousness.
To being conscious. That process, though, if you can imagine, you're trying to go from an ego-centered state to a egoless centered state. I'm trying to go from a state in which I am completely absorbed only with self-actualization and fulfillment. And apparently teshuvah is I am going into a state of ego death and I am exterminating myself so that I can experience the ultimate self, the selfless one. And that takes teshuvah. And for that, you need a lot of preparation. And this is connected to the word I will be, that we know that there is a name of Hashem which comes from the highest sfirot of Keter. That's called Eya, I will be. I'm not yet, I will be. Because the concept of teshuvah means I'm not there yet.
So you're preparing.
So you're preparing to be. And what does it mean that I'm preparing to be? So we explained that for a person to exist, Rabbi Nachman says he must be conscious. To be conscious means he is aware of Yud Kei Vav Kei, of Hashem. Like when Moshe came to Paro and he told them, by the way, I'm taking the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, which his whole entire paradigm is that tzaddik is coming down into your personal life and he's ripping you out of the secular world. He's ripping you out of your ego state. And then all of a sudden, Paro or your Yetzer Hara here's what's going on. Yeah, your goof. And he says to Moshe, what are you doing? Leave them alone. You're already free, like he said. You're not even a slave. Why are you? Let them get back to their work. Who sent you? What does Moshe say? Hashem. And what does Paro respond? I don't know Hashem. Who's Hashem? Who's Hashem? Meaning to say that as long as a person doesn't know Hashem, doesn't have existence. Okay. Now, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, there's a famous commentary in the Shulchan Aruch before the Shulchan Aruch was created that's called the Torah. And the Torah says that what is the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, just pshat, what does it simply mean? Everything that was, is, and will be. What does that sound like? Existence. Very good, Benny. You got it. Existence. Meaning to say that teshuvah, you're trying to return to reality, to Hashem, to exist. So unless you have Yud Kei Vav Kei, you can't exist. Why? Because Yud Kei Vav Kei is whatever was, is, and will be. He is existence. But in the process to obtaining Yud Kei Vav Kei, to connecting to Hashem, there needs to be a state that's called preparation for that. That's called the Elul. That's called the Keter. Pre-teshuvah. Now, Rabbi Nachman says like this. He says, Adayin ein lo havaya. There is not to him yet havaya, which is a double entendre, meaning to say, on the one hand, he's saying he doesn't yet have havaya, meaning existence. And he's also hinting to what we just said. He doesn't have Hashem because it's one thing. Because he doesn't have Hashem, he doesn't have havaya, he doesn't have existence. It's as if he literally, mamas, does not yet exist yet in the world. Kitov lo shelo nivra, mishanivra. Like the Gemara says in Masechet Erevin, Yud Gimel Amud Bet, it's better if you would have not yet have been created. There was a whole entire debate between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, which lasted 2.5 years. And they were going back and forth for 2.5 straight years, the students of Hillel and the students of Shammai, to determine, to paskin, was it better? Would it have been better if we were created or not? If human beings were created or not? That's a crazy situation. To even have a contemplation, to have a mahavamina, that we understand that the whole reason Hashem created the world was for us. And at the same time, they're having a legitimate halachic discussion every day for 2.5 years. That's almost 1,000 days. Would it have been better if we existed or not? And they came out Beit Shammai and they said, well, it would be better if we didn't. Why? Not because they are morbid, not because they are negative, but because they're saying, can you imagine? Hashem created an entire race of people who are not existing. So what's the point of their being created? I created them so they should exist. And if they're not conscious, they don't understand and connect to reality, so they're not really existing. So what are they? It's like ghost town.
How could they even argue with such a thing? I understand. It's like criticizing God, isn't it?
The point is that we were not living up to what we were created for. Meaning the whole point of us being created was that we should exist. So if we're not existing, then we're not meeting the purpose of our creation. And not only that, that because Hashem put the whole world in our hands, so to speak, so we're guiding the destination of the world. Hashem gave that over to us. So not only are we not achieving our purpose of creation, but we're actually bringing everything back as well into regression.
So maybe that should be their mission, to make themselves conscious. Some
That's
people
right.
Can't do it.
Very good. And when a person, he comes to purify himself and to engage in what is teshuvah, then he attains this madrega that's called I will be. Why? Because I'm preparing now to be. Meaning I'm preparing to exist in the world. Meaning I'm preparing to be. This is the concept of the crown in Kabbalah, the highest madrega, which all the way is interesting. Why? Because we're saying that Yud Kei Vav Kei is what we're looking for, right? We're looking to experience Hashem.
Well, didn't we say in that place that it's unfathomable, it's unknowable, therefore there's no existence there really?
Oh, so you bring a separate point, which is connected, and that is, it seems like Rabbi Nachman's saying that the path towards becoming is actually higher than the path of being. Because the Keter, which means Eya, I will be, as opposed to Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is connected to Tiferet, which is exist, that's lower than Keter. It sounds like what he's hinting to is that a person's preparations towards becoming real, towards actualizing himself, that stage of growth and development is connected to the Keter, is even higher than existing itself.
Physically.
So that process comes with breaking, shattering, because then you can't create anything below it without first nullifying
Whatever is.
right.
Yes, but it's just a very interesting thing to think about, that we always think to ourselves, I can't wait to be, meaning I can't wait to achieve closeness to Hashem. I can't wait to finally feel peace in my life from really having a munah. I can't wait to connect at the highest level. And it seems to be that according to Kabbalah, based on Rabbi Nachman's teaching here, it's mashma that the process of getting there, which is very painful, which we wish that we wouldn't have to go through, which we can't wait for it to be over with, it might even be rooted in a higher place than actually closeness to Hashem, the process of becoming.
Because we can't actually control what we can do with our future. So we have to self-nullify ourselves to say that everything's up to Hashem. So whatever way we're going to get there sooner or later. And that's how we can become closer, because in one way we're hidden, and we get to grow more in another way where we think about our future, which we don't have control over. And that just makes us more anxious and more fear. But a person who self-nullifies gets himself more munah. And
Rabbi Nachman says that the Chiddush of Mashiach will be not just that when we were down, it was really for the best, but that the Chiddush of Mashiach is that when we were most down, we were really most up.
So when you're going from the down up, are you getting lower?
It sounds like that's the highest point of your life. That the point in which a person has begun to prepare himself to get close to Hashem, those stages that we're all in, that we are in such pain from, because the process of growth and of transcending from our state, which previously is so difficult, is so challenging, that this is actually a higher spiritual madrega than the actual process of becoming close.
It's all good because the beginning is like that.
Yes.
It sounds like the concept of Rosh Hashanah. The Rosh, it's Rosh Hashanah is when they decree what the year will be. So everything is yet what will be. It's not yet, but it's decreed. But that's considered
The head of the year.
The head, it's the Rosh. That's why it's so holy. Maybe that's why Rav Nachman
It's connecting
has
to
the whole thing.
on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
Very good. Beautiful. Okay. Now it says there's a very famous Gemara. Habala teher misayin lo. A person that he comes to purify himself. Lest the person think to himself, how am I ever going to do this? I am so far from what the Torah speaks about, what the tzaddikim talk about, the experiences that I read about from the sages from thousands of years ago. I'm literally mamish, like universes away from that. Maybe I shouldn't even start. Maybe I shouldn't even begin. Comes the Gemara to say, don't worry. A person that he comes to purify himself, as soon as he prepares himself to, that he's made a decision in his mind and his heart that he wants to, Messiah lo, that he is assisted from above, that he draws down from the highest spiritual world assistance that is supernatural. Because otherwise there is no ability for a person to go from this place to that place. There's no way for a Baal Tshuva to go from that life and to end up in that life. It's impossible.
That doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Why would I go from drugs and girls and this and that to
Well, how can I? Or even how can I?
to payas and beard and black hat? It just doesn't make sense.
How am I?
It's a very fascinating concept of Torah, that an internal decision just in your heart, like a thought, has like
Such a
so many
power.
massive like
Ramifications.
like the universes move and stuff opens up and like
Very good. This is why Rabbi Nachman actually says that ratzon, your desire itself, is the most precious thing to Hashem, even more than whatever happens after that. Once I make a decision, I want to get better, which is called keter. I want to. This itself is the highest level. Just wanting. Just the fact that you want to. A person that he comes to do so, he's assisted from above. Mashal echad. There's a mashal that's given in the Gemara. Shabali kanot afar samon. Oh, Benny's gonna like this. Amrim lo hamtein. There's a story in the Gemara to explain what does it mean that Hashem assists that person, and that a person who he tries to do the opposite, he decides, I don't want to grow. I don't want to go on this path of becoming close to Hashem. I choose not to.
Hashem assists him in that.
Hashem assists him in that also, says the Gemara. He will help make it easier for him to do that as well. Okay? What's the mashal that they give there?
Just like when
A person comes to,
Good smelling place.
he comes to a merchant. The merchant sells two different types of things. He has gasoline, kerosene, says the Gemara, and he smells, and he has sweet smells, which is called fursamim. Some type of very, very, very hypnotic type of smell, something very pleasant, okay? Something very valuable. A person comes, says the Gemara, and he says to the merchant, I want to get kerosene. The guy doesn't even lift up his head. He goes, go ahead, you figure out how much you need and you just bring it back to me and pay for it. You measure it out and you come to me. A person who comes to the sweet smelling scents, says the Gemara, the merchant says, you want the scents? Okay, good, come with me. I'm gonna go give it to you myself because I want to smell it also.
So the bad smell, you go do it, The good smell comes. I'll hook you up.
Yeah. Either way, it's up to it's yours. Meaning you want the kerosene, the merchant says, go, I'll let you do it yourself. But I don't want to smell
It's
it.
such a chiddush because like nowadays it's like mamish the complete opposite. Like a lot of people refer to gas as a good smell now. Like for example, some people who burn,
Yeah.
they call you, oh, it's that fire, it's that gas, and they'll actually go with you to smell. Like the thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
It's true.
it's interesting.
So
It's like a role
it's like-
switch.
It's like
Yeah.
saying Hashem, well, without a doubt, just say you just do whatever you want and you pay for it. Basically saying that you can do whatever you want and you still get to pay for your.
Not only that,
actions.
he assists you. He shows you where
Right,
it
he
is.
assists you, he shows you where it is.
Right. He helps you
But
do
when
whatever you want to
something
do.
Smells good, then he will also help you, but he wants to see you.
He's gonna do it with you.
He'll
Right.
hold your hands and pay us with you.
He's gonna do it with you.
Right.
Okay. So now what do they tell him though when he wants the sweet smelling smells? What's the first thing Rabbi Nachman says? The Gemara says, Hamten, wait. That for the kerosene, he says, go take whatever you want. But for the sweet smells, even though Hashem, meaning the merchant, wants to do it with him, he says, first wait, because I want to do it with you. Meaning to say that the process of getting the sweet smells, the process of doing teshuvah is one which first requires waiting.
We were waiting for you all this time.
I wish I can stay with you, Wes.
I can't.
Good to see you. Thank you so
See you.
much,
See
Ruben.
you.
Hashem should bless you.
See you, Wes.
Tell Benny, give him my love, and Danny too.
Oh, I will. Thank you, guys.
Have a great night, Ruben. He tells him, wait. Okay. Now, this is a very deep thing, meaning to say that on the one hand, when a person wants to get close to Hashem, he immediately feels the opposite of being helped. He feels like he's being rejected. But the rabbis are going to tell him, don't worry, it's just a time period. Because Rabbi Nachman says, ultimately, you're going to see that all of the pushing away was really for bringing closer. And this is a beautiful mashal to explain what's really taking place. He's saying, I want the sweetest smells. So Hashem is saying to him, wait, I want to join you. But that process of wait, I want to join you means that there's a distance now between you smelling the smell and it actually happening, but it's not because Hashem's not with you. He's right next to you as you're getting, he's trying to get the smells ready for you, but you're not ready to smell it yet.
Maybe he needs you to prepare you to be in the presence
Of the smell.
because after the Chet HaEgel, Hashem was in the presence of the Jewish people, and after the sin, he said, now they have to come to me.
Nachon.
Why? Because it's for their own good. Because if I'm just around them and they do something wrong, based on the side of Deen, I have to destroy them.
Right.
So for their own good, I'm going to distance myself from them. And when they come to me, then I'm making myself present.
Beautiful.
So it's like I guess he wants us to.
That's
have to
right.
travel.
And this is why the Baal Shem Tov says our entire life is one of hide and go seek.
Also with the perfumer, how it works
Yeah.
is that you kind of tell them your personality, and fragrance actually becomes a part of you. It's not, they don't just give you
A scent.
a scent.
They see what you're all about.
Yeah, they mamish see your life, we'll call it,
Yeah.
and based off your life and all your situations and scenarios, this is for you. Like this is your essence.
Yeah, this is what speak of you. Interesting. Yes. Yes. Zebechina keter. This is the concept of keter. Because the word in Aramaic, even though in Hebrew, keter means crown, corona,
COVID, kavod.
which is interesting. Today I saw a car, it was a truck. It was called Corona Construction. And I thought to myself, how connected it is to our Torah? Because what are we saying? On the one hand, in Hebrew, keter means crown, it's the highest level. On the other hand, in Aramaic, it means katar, it means to wait, construction. Shikatuv, like the pasuk says, katar li ze'er v'achavecha. Like it says in Eov, which is in Aramaic, wait for me a while and I will tell you. Now, interestingly, in that story, what was going on? Eov was trying to be close to Hashem and was getting murked. I was getting rejected in the highest possible way, suffering the greatest suffering known in the history of Tanakh was the suffering of Eov. Okay, his friends though happened to be, I guess, big tzaddikim, and one of them came to him and he said, "Wait, before you go into complete despair, and to complete self, no, and to a mode of here we go again, here's my terrible life, why does this always happen to me? Yeah, he says, wait, and I'm going to tell you, meaning I'm going to show you how this is really from Hashem. But he says, notice the pasuk, it says, wait, because the only way for Eov to figure out that it's from Hashem and it's for the good is only if he waits.
Right, because if you're just looking at it right away, face value, it doesn't seem like
it does. It's not, right? Very good. Aval kodem teshuva, however, before teshuva, azai bechinat eya. Before teshuva, the concept of eya for the Jew, I will be b'hastarat panim imenu. It's hidden from him, meaning that he cannot just go in the process. Before he gets eya, I am prepared to be. He can't just turn it on. He needs to first get what's called the backside of eya. Because he has not yet prepared himself to exist in the world. Meaning he's saying before a person decides I want to be close to Hashem. Yeah. So where is he now? What is that? So he's in pre-Eya state. Before he's saying I want to be. And now what ends up happening? He says he gets the hidden face of Eya. This is very Kabbalistic. And he says like this. The Arizal brings down that there's a way to count different words in the Torah, and the way in which you count it can show you what is the experience of a person when that thing is hidden from him. Again, the Arizal is saying, let's say for instance, we have something called shalom, peace. Peace means you have it. It's revealed to you. You're reading the word. But what happens if you're looking for it and you don't see it yet? Or let's say you don't even have it on your radar. So what are you getting? Peace must exist, but you're not getting peace because you're not looking for it. So what must you be getting? Peace must still exist for you, but how does it exist for you?
in pieces.
In pieces. In a concealed form. And the Arizal says, I'm going to show you a way in which that you can know what that concealed form is. How does it express
It's
itself?
not like a puzzle, though.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Okay.
You have pieces, but then when all those pieces go online,
It's
becomes-
peace. Very good. You got it. I don't know why you haven't created the Twitter page for us yet that you can just like, Mom,
Because I'm
put
trying
these
to get
things.
rid of.
Okay, there you go. Okay, like this. How would you do it? So we're going to do it with the name Eya. This is what Rabbi Nachman said. What is, so to speak, the backside of Eya? What is the concealed form of Eya? What is this when a person has not yet decided he wants to prepare to be? What is he experiencing? Yeah. So why is that? So he says, take the word Eya. Go with the first letter, Aleph, the Arizal says. Now, I want you to go back. Take a step back. And do Aleph and a Hey. And then I want you to do another step back and do Aleph, Hey, Yud. And then I want you to do a final step back and do Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey. This is a series of counting backwards. Acharayim, he calls it, the Arizal.
It's a form of,
And the gematria of Eya, as it actually is 21. But using this form of counting it, it becomes 44, which is the gematria of dam, of blood. Hainu, meaning shafichu damim uvizionot, which is the concept of the spilling of blood, or what Chazal tell us, that when a person is embarrassed, it's literally like somebody killed him. Meaning to say, why is it that a Jew who decides I want to be close to Hashem, or maybe he's not even at that point yet, why is he constantly being embarrassed? Why is he constantly being questioned? The reason is because he wants Eya. He wants the Keter. He wants to be close to Hashem on the highest level. But before he can get Keter as it really is, he needs to get the concealed version first. That is not Eya, that's Dam, that's blood. What's the reason for that?
Bitterness.
He needs to experience bitterness. Like Rabbi Nachman says in the Moharan, that before a person can experience Shalom, he must first experience bitterness. That we learn it out from the mitzvah of Shabbat, which we know Shabbat is the essence of Shalom, of peace. That before we got the mitzvah of Shabbat, we needed to first visit a place called Marah, which literally means bitterness. And right after we visited Marah, we then got the mitzvah of Shabbat. So Rabbi Nachman says you learn from this that it's impossible to get Shabbat without first getting Marah. Now, interestingly, in that story in the Torah, what happened at this place of Marah? Moshe Rabbeinu, he took this water, which was very bitter. He took this stick, he placed it in the water, and it turned sweet. Now, it doesn't make any sense because all the parties involved in this situation were bitter. And yet the end result was that something sweet came out. So we see that this whole entire thing is really a paradigm for exactly what we're learning.
Well, it's saying that to Hashem,
I want to be close to you. He says, but you're bitter. So he tells Moshe, what are you going to do? Put the bitterness in bitter water. Meaning, embarrass him. And then what ends up happening is, that's very bitter. But what ends up becoming expelled and extinguished as a result?
Ego.
His ego.
It's interesting that you have to put it in water, though.
In that case.
Because water is purity.
Because water is the tzaddik.
I like how you guys go hashtag. Okay. Hainu. Okay, so Al Shem. Therefore, the pasuk says, because Hashem says, I honor those who honor me, but the opposite happens to those who don't. Ki adayin adam shebechalal hasmali shebalev, because it's taught by Chazal, it's taught by the Hasidic masters. Where is my ego located within myself? In my heart. And where in my heart? In the left ventricle. When we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, it says you should love Hashem with all your heart. Lavavcha, with two bets. And Chazal, the sages, they say it shouldn't be two bets. It doesn't grammatically make any sense. They say it's coming to teach you that you need to love Hashem with both your hearts. What do you mean, both my hearts? The left and the right. Very good. That in the left ventricle, this is the seat of the ego. This is the seat of the Yetzer Hara.
What does that look like practically? How do you love Hashem with your ego?
Oh, by nullifying it.
So if you don't get
Meaning on the right side, I just try to get close to Hashem. But on my left side, I actually have an ability to serve Hashem with the left side of my heart as well. By using the ego as a mechanism, as a vehicle to experiencing Hashem by shattering it.
Like positive mitzvahs and negative mitzvahs. How
Yes.
do you get positive? By doing it.
So Shasham Medor Yetzer Hara, because the left ventricle in the heart is the place in which the Yetzer Hara is dwelling. Kamoshe Katuv, like the pasuk says, "V'leiv kasir lismolo," the heart of a fool, it's to his left. So meaning to say that when a Jewish person is inclining to the left side of his heart, the Torah says he's a fool. But when he inclines to the right side of his heart, that means he's wise.
So why don't Pesach
What is the connection between the right and the left side of the heart? The right side of the heart is chesed, to give, to go outside of oneself. The left side is to move in, to be self-involved, to be self-interested.
But because the left side is what puts things into reality.
That's right. Very good. Because spiritually, the left side is the side of limitation. The left side is the side of constriction, of bringing into reality. The right side is the side of expansion, of moving out, of growing. Adayin hu b'tokef va'oz.
I have a question.
Wow.
The left side still retains all of its power and strength because this person who's decided, I want to be close to Hashem. That's great. That's amazing. And Hashem is very happy with that. However, there's one problem. You have a part of you that is mamish pulsating with negativity. You have a part of you which is filled with packets of ego. It's filled with pungent blood, dam. And this dam, even though you want to be close to me, you wouldn't even feel me if you saw me right now because you're still full with yourself. So we need to first release the ketchup packet.
Mom is trippy.
And until we do that, you're not going to be able to experience me. You don't have a space for me.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
You just got blood all over you.
And because of this, this is why a person who decides, I want to do teshuvah, I want to come close to Hashem, I want to come learn Rabbi Nachman's Torah, I want to go do Hibodedut, I want to start putting into practice these pieces of advice that I'm getting. But all of a sudden, everybody's making fun of me. Everybody's embarrassing me. Everybody's saying, what's wrong with you? It's not normal. What are you doing? And we think to ourselves that this is getting in the way of us experiencing the Torah of Rabbi Nachman.
Is that called investigating him?
Yes. But what we're learning is very deep.
Yeah, doesn't make sense. When I was sinning, you didn't give it. Now that I don't want to sin, now all of a sudden you care about me? Herbs.
And what's the reason? Because they are actually the mechanism for you getting to experience Rabbi Nachman, for experiencing Hashem. Because even if you come to the classes of the tzaddik, even if you do hiporodut and you connect in the most intimate form to Hashem, but as long as it's all about you, you're not. So how chaval it would be that you would spend so much time trying to connect to something, and yet you never actually do it, because it always remains external. So what happens? You come here, you try to receive light, but the light can't get in. So what happens? You go home, you get sucker punched by somebody, all of a sudden a little bit of blood squirts out because embarrassment is keneged shifch damim, that is the spilling of blood. And now all of a sudden that light can enter in a little bit more. Every single time, more and more and more and more. And this is, I think, one of the deep reasons why you'll see, and I've heard for myself from other people who are not Breslev, they are not involved in Chassidus at all, that they told me first explicitly, the most humble people I ever met in my life, all students of Rabbi Nachman. Now, on the one side, it's because usually that person has gone through a lot of suffering in his life. That already humbles a person. However, it's also that once you finally find Rabbi Nachman, you have to get another type from everybody around you. So what happens by the time you have actually internalized those teachings? You're mamish bittul.
Yo, I finally understand the story. We're living in the tainted grain. Because the only way to get to the highest level is if everyone thinks you're crazy. As long as you know that you're crazy. Okay.
Want a hug?
I was gonna say that makes sense.
What?
I was gonna say this makes.
This makes perfect sense.
No, you said the whole thing is specifically when you get embarrassed and you don't respond in your heart and not just verbally.
Yeah.
But he said this is how he cleanses you out, is when you get embarrassed, blood gets spilled. But if you do respond with ego, then all you do is refill it with yourself more.
That's right, exactly. And then it has
But
that.
if you don't respond, then it gets spilled, and it actually is going down. And you don't refill it with more.
That's
Because
right.
left ventricle's all ego.
You got it. Very good. You got it.
I didn't get it.
No.
Hashem gave it.
Okay, that's
I
it.
just received it.
I heard, that's why I heard many stories.
He's like, please, I'm trying to release the blood. Stop filling it up. 1 second. Before we have commentaries from everybody. They are the aspect of the hidden and turned face of Hashem. That is Eker, I will be, you want to be. That's great, that's beautiful, and that's the first step. But you have to get the backside of whatever it is that you're doing first. Okay? And this is the gematria of dam, of blood. The tikkun lazeh. What's the rectification for this?
Next week on job.
Dam ladom. Turn blood dam ladom to silence. Same word. You just respond in a different way. That as opposed to the past when I was responding to being challenged and being confronted and being investigated with added confrontation, with increase of ego, with assertion of self. But now I'm going to turn that dam, that blood, into dome, into silence. Same exact word, same letter, same everything. This is the tikkun, Rabbi Nachman says. Shihei min hashomim cherpatam, that he hears himself being vilified by others. Ve'ena meshivim, he doesn't return any answer. V'lo yadaktek al bizion kavodo. He's not medaktek. He is not particular about how anybody views him. He doesn't care or concern himself with how other people see him. And then he's mekayiming dom laHashem, that the pasuk says, dom laHashem. Be quiet to Hashem, David HaMelech says, King David says, which is not by any coincidence, by the way. Az HaKadosh Baruch Hu mapil lo chalalim chalalim. The Gemara says in Masechet Gittin that this pasuk, which is be silent to Hashem, and then the end is v'yitcholelo, and hope to him. But the word cholel also comes from the root chalalim, which means to strike one dead. Which is to say, Chazal, that when a person is silent, Hashem destroys all of his enemies. So what does it mean that Hashem destroys my enemies? I still hear them every single day chirping in my ear.
It's because Hashem is destroying the enemies in you.
Oh, because the enemies, says the Hasidic masters that David HaMelech speaking about in Tehillim, are not outside of him. He's referring to his own ego. He's referring to his own Yetzer Hara.
And Hashem had to use his own kid, his wives, his this, his that, just for that. Damn, nigga.
So I think we're not.
Yes, everyone. Rav Natan didn't understand. You know, there was a time in his life that people around him were very happy with him. All of a sudden, he comes to Rebbe Nachman, and everybody's just all over him. And he comes to Rebbe Nachman, he's getting it even worse. He says, Rebbe, I don't understand. Everything that you teach is like in the Torah. you're not saying anything.
Contrary.
Yeah, you're not saying anything contrary to what it says already. Why is it that everybody's cholek on you? And not just that, but like vehemently. They say the most horrifying things about you. And his response with a big smile was, I answer all questions about me with silence. Every question I answer with silence. Which is to say that Rabbi Nachman understood that this was all a part of him becoming Rabbi Nachman. That his ability to attain Kavod Elokim, to become the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, to become the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, he would first have to have vilification from others and not to respond. Because it's only in this way that he can completely nullify his ego. And we know that the students and the Hasidim of the Rebbe are actually considered like him himself. And therefore you see that all of the students of Rabbeinu, they get the same treatment. And by the way, it's interesting, it still happens now. 210 years later, they're still getting vilified. And they're literally not teaching anything different. You would think on paper, everyone would be thrilled about Breslov. How many people are going off? How many people grew up religious? They want nothing to do with Judaism. How many secular people they are. They have no way to find connection, closeness to Hashem. Breslov is the answer. Rabbi Nachman's the answer. And if you ask somebody, should I learn it? Watch it. Someone sees you doing Hibodadu, talking to Hashem. What are you doing? Come into yeshiva. Come learn. If you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. What's the whole point? What's the whole point of the learning of the Torah? Is that you should know that there's Hashem. A person believes it so much, I'm actually going to go speak to him. I'm actually going to check my phone for the message Benjamin just sent me. You would think, honestly, wouldn't you think that an Orthodox rabbi, if he found out that a person who grew up completely secular, that he's talking to Hashem for an hour a day, he would cry from happiness? But why is the response, what's wrong with you? Do something valuable. It's not logical. Because Rabbi Nachman, says Rav Morgenstern Shlita, he's the revelation of the Keter. He is the concept of I will be. So for anybody who wants to receive the highest teachings, they become a part of that whole experience. And this is my plug, that anybody who wants chizuk and wants to see what I'm saying is a reality besides your own experiences, if you read through Fire and Water, the biography of Rav Natan, almost immediately, you're probably just going to start crying. Anybody from shock at how similar your experiences in life are, and especially, particularly after you start to try and learn Rabbi Nachman's teachings and bring them into your life, to what happened to him. It's so eerie how similar it is. It shows that it's a spiritual phenomenon and it's not something physical, because it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Now, when he's quiet, he turns dam to dome. He turns blood to silence. And this is the tikkun. And then hope for him, meaning wait for him, and Hashem is going to destroy his enemies. Comes David HaMelech to say, V'libi chalal b'kirbi. My heart is hallowed within me. That was at the end of his life, the Baal HaTanya says, after he had nullified his Yetzer Hara, meaning to say, how did David do that? He did it that because his whole entire life he was waiting. Because his whole life, everyone was questioning him. He was ostracized by his family. He was alienated by his brothers. The people in his generation thought he was a balavera, the Gemara says. His son tried to kill him, and his wife was embarrassed by him. And the list goes on and on and on.
She embarrassed him.
and he was he was embarrassed by her. I mean, she.
Yeah, you said that. Something else, right?
Okay.
So when Mashiach comes, do we
So-
have to question him?
So David was saying, "Vayidom, silence." That I was silent, and then Hashem marked out all my enemies. Meaning that it's through my not responding to all of them that I became King David. That's how I became the Mashiach. That's how I became David HaMelech. Because I didn't respond, I rectified myself. And now I've done teshuvah. And now I can be the king. Nachon? And this is what it says. This is all through the quiet and silence of the Jewish man or woman. And then this negative dam, this blood, is then lessened. This is the concept of the slaughtering the Yetzer Hara. That Hashem says that in the final generation, the Gemara says, I believe it's in Masechet Sukkah, that I am going to slaughter the Yetzer Hara. How is he going to do it?
By the neck.
By shattering our egos. This is the path towards the slaughtering of the Yetzer Hara. And it's through this that we merit to kavod of Elokim, that we merit to the keter. Like the pasuk says, "Oveach todah yechabdani." Whoever brings a korban of thanksgiving, he honors me. V'darshu hachamenu zichronam livracha. Says the sages of Chazal, Zavichat hayetzer hara, meaning whoever slaughters his own Yetzer Hara, he is showing that he's thanking me.
Right, like the sacrificial lamb.
Yes. One second. Okay. This is the end of section 2. Bezrat Hashem. We are going to continue this Torah Tuesday night. I know this is a very intense Torah for you guys. This is like commonplace, you know. But whoever's listening, even if this is more of an uncomfortable, I know the first time I did this lesson, I think almost every time I did this lesson, I felt uncomfortable for a lot of reasons. But it's very important that you get through this whole lesson because I'm Ashkenazi. You'll see by the end of the lesson, there's some very, very, very deep things that come out, which the sages, the elders of Breslov are going to get you so pumped and so excited that when somebody comes and they speak against you or they oppose you or they vilify you, that you literally will be amped up about it. You'll be yoked about it because you actually realize that what's waiting on the other side is the greatest thing in the world, that I have an opportunity now to do a tikkun that would take me my whole life, that I can now do in a short amount of time if I just keep hearing these things about myself and not responding. Avram Chazan, just to end this lesson, Bezrat Hashem will continue Tuesday. He was a very, very, very big tzaddik in Breslov. He says, you learn from this lesson something unbelievable. In truth, we should actually go to the mikveh. Can you turn the volume off?
Put yourself on mute, please.
In truth, embarrassment, vilification, to have people around you say negative things about you or cause you to be uncomfortable because of what they say negativity towards you, or you hear negativity towards you. Avram Chazan says, in truth, this is so great that really, in theory, we should go to the mikveh first. That if we know that we're going to get embarrassed, we should go to the mikveh and prepare ourselves like we're getting ready for a chag. He says, so why don't we? If, according to Rebbe Nachman, literally the greatest tikkun in the world for getting close to Hashem in the shortest way possible is to be embarrassed by somebody and not to respond, that we should really prepare ourselves with joy, with simcha, go to the mikveh, get ourselves ready, put on our nicest clothes, and take it and just not respond and celebrate for the rest of the day. So why don't we? It says because Hashem has a very funny sense of humor, and he made it that embarrassment always comes out of nowhere.
You can never see it coming.
And because of that, you cannot go celebrate and you can't prepare yourself. you can't go to the mikveh, even if you wanted to, because you reach such a high madrega that you're literally excited to hear things about you and not to respond.
I feel like it comes when you're at your most arrogant. So that's really, really hard to like not, you know what I mean? Where you're like,
Yeah, for sure. Anybody have any questions from tonight's lesson?
Plenty.
Okay. There's no questions here. Everybody responded with silence.
he's been patiently waiting with a question.
He's been patiently waiting
We were
for a
just
question
teaching
to
you
explode on. Go ahead.
Shalom, Rabbi. Can you please make a little like summary of the important points, please?
I came 2 minutes ago.
When you hear somebody speak about you negatively, Rabbi Nachman teaches that the greatest rectification, the greatest soul tikkun in the world, healing, comes when you don't respond and you're quiet. And if you do this, you abolish, you extinguish your ego. And this is the entire barrier between you and Hashem. Because you yourself are a godly soul and Hashem is God himself. So I should really always have dveikus with Hashem. So what's separating me from him? There's only one thing, the left side of my heart, my
This
ego.
is why cold mikvahs is a common practice by Rav Nachman and Baal Shem Tov, because when you don't have the blood pulsing, you don't have ego really.
Also the hot mikveh as well. It's like getting a nice embarrassment. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
So if like a person will like practice doing that, like if let's say he's like he's working on himself, he doesn't want to get embarrassed, right? Like let's say a person is getting embarrassed, right? And he's holding himself and he's just not saying anything. So Nachman says that it's cleansing a person.
Yes, it's the greatest tikkun. He actually says it's the highest form of rectification.
Isn't that just
So I have
simple?
another question. Like let's say it's really strongly like bothering him and he's like controlling himself, right? So does that challenge get like easier for him, or it's like it's always gonna be
Yes.
hard?
So Rabbi Nachman's saying that that's the first stage. The first stage is, this is different than what I did before. That is that I hear it, and even though it's killing me on the inside, I'm not responding. And ultimately, through connection to Rabbi Nachman's teachings, through Mekayiming his advice, specifically in the area of doing Hipodadut every day and learning his Torah on a daily basis, then as time goes on and you merit it, then it becomes eventually, if you have the merit, that you don't feel it in your heart as well as coming out of your mouth. You're silent in both places, and then you have achieved complete kavod Elokim. So how do you know when you have gotten to this highest level, which really is a very, very high level, obviously? That is when I literally don't feel anything. When a person speaks very negative things about me.
Wow, so giving blood weekly would also help theoretically.
So the sages actually say it's good to bloodlet.
To give blood,
Yeah.
to donate.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
They say it's a cure for a lot of sicknesses.
That's a dope mechanism. I'm down.
Just make sure you do it at a clean facility. Yes.
so when you were speaking about this, saying,
You started spilling your own blood.
no, about that, we should stay quiet.
Just kidding.
When somebody, it
Yeah.
reminds me, it brings one of the pasuk on the Tanakh, Isaiah 53:7. I think it was 7 or 6.
Yeah.
7.
Okay.
It says he was maltreated, yet he was submissive. He did not open his mouth, like a sheep being led to slaughter. Like I don't know how to read this.
Yeah, he says it's like I'm slaughtering myself for you every day.
Yeah.
Yes, beautiful. That's exactly this Torah. You got it, Daniel. Very good.
Thank you.
And even though on paper this appears to be the most painful experience and we resist it, but the reason truly, if you think about it, why you resist it so much is because we do everything we possibly can to protect our ego. And we don't realize and notice how intensely bound up we are with our own self, that we don't even have the havamina to think that it could be a good thing that somebody would say something negative about me. That sounds like the most horrifying experience. And mostly in people's lives, that is the worst experience of their life, when they are embarrassed. However, if you realize that in truth, everything you want in your life, which is to be connected to something unlimited, that comes with having nothing of your own, then in fact, when you get this opportunity, it can actually be sweet.
How does a king get embarrassed?
Everybody gets embarrassed.
But as a king get embarrassed.
What do you-
David was- But isn't there a law for that if somebody embarrasses the king offers that type of thing?
100%.
Therefore what?
But he got it. Still,
But I'm saying, like, why couldn't he just have his son put to death or his wife who's mentioned out to put to, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying, like, if you're a king, it must be that you have to come from a place where you can't have that ego anymore. I'm not talking about like a Game of Thrones type of king.
no,
I'm talking about David Melech.
100%. So there's a whole entire story with Shlomo that he wanted somebody killed, and the question was why he wanted this person killed. If he's coming from the family of humility, the whole concept of David was that he had reached complete humility. He wouldn't have wanted that, and the answer is because according to halakha, it needs to happen. That's also part of his humility. It's not about me that it's happening. I'm doing it because Hashem wants it. For David, it would never happen. Even when his wife embarrassed him and said to him, "Why are you dancing like a fool?" He said, "I did it and I'm going to continue. I'll do whatever it takes to bring kavod to Hashem." He didn't care about himself.
Yeah, but him not killing her is also like not doing Hashem's work, so no?
So it all depends. Everything is each on their own, needs to be examined and looked at on their own. We know that David represents the Malchut. The Malchut of Kedusha represents complete humility. This is the concept of the king who ultimately is not questioned in the end. He's the Mashiach. But along the way, he gets questioned by everybody.
So I had a question prior
Sure.
that when Mashiach comes, do we have to question him?
Why? You're saying because of this whole thing?
Yeah.
It sounds like from
We need to know if you're bottle or not.
you, it's not that you need to do it. It's just that it's going to happen naturally.
I mean, doesn't it say that at the very end, multiple people are going to come saying that they're Mashiach? How are you going to know who's what? Who's who?
You don't need to, there doesn't need to be a vetting process that you need to be a part of. You're going to see that whoever is this Jewish leader, he automatically, in order to get to this place of Kavod Elohim, he's going to be having people say things for that. You don't have to be the cause of it. It's going to happen. It's a spiritual reality. Yosef
They're gonna
has,
say bad things about him?
yeah,
Or do they say bad things about everybody?
so that's why it's difficult.
That's why I'm asking, do you question Mashiach?
It's not about you questioning Mashiach.
It seems to me the person who's the most investigated has the potential to be the highest.
It all depends. He could also just be looking for Kavod Malachim. That's why it's such a, because the concept between the king, the Mashiach himself, and the false leader, there is externally a very thin line. Internally, it's a completely different universe. It's a completely different world. And that's why we need to pray very, very much that we have real leaders and not false leaders.
When a person is bold, you see him himself arrogant if he talks about himself.
No,
You know,
when you speak out loud, you actually nullify your ego. And also, by the way, there's another Torah in Likutey Moharan where Rabbi Nachman says, how do we know who real leaders are? Is there any way to do it? It's not through a vetting process of embarrassing them and see how they respond. It's actually when a Jew completely eliminates his taivas, he's able to see who's real and who's not automatically.
So when, for example, when I get rid of all my tavas,
Yeah.
then I can smell out who's.
You could smell it who's real and who's not. And the three taivas that he speaks about specifically are sex, money, and food.
In every song that's Mamish played.
And if those threes are completely nullified, then he says that you will be able to see who are the leaders of the generation.
isn't also jealousy, hate, and lust also the same?
But not in those, it's these three. These are the three main ones for the heart. These are called the barriers of Yerushalayim. When you remove those, you build Yerushalayim, then you can see who's the king. Okay? Everybody have an amazing night. Saturday night, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to celebrate the Rebbe, the birthday of Rebbe Nachman, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the best month of the year according to Chazal, according to Hashem. This is the month of the year. By the way, very interesting thing. All the 12 months, they're corresponding to different configurations of Hashem's name. Yud Kei Vav Kei. So like you would have a Yud and a Vav and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. You'd have a Yud, Hey Vav, you have a Vav. Yeah. So you can do it in 12 different ways. And the 12 different manifestations of Hashem's name, they give and produce the energy for each month. That's why the month feels like it does every year in that way. Now, interestingly, is there any month in which Hashem's name is just normal?
Never.
Meaning it's just Yud Ke Vav Ke, the way that it actually is. Yes, Nisan. Meaning when Hashem really is as he is, it's Nisan, it's all love. It's redemption, it's Geula. He can't be anything other than that because he's only good. It's only when he, so to speak, manipulates himself that he manifests himself in a different way. But he, as he really is, he's taking you out of Mitzrayim.
This is interesting.
That's why
That
he's
even
one.
within time, like for example, we have 12 months, right?
Yeah.
And we have 365 days. We have 52 weeks. These are all levels.
Okay, I didn't go to school for so long, so I don't know all these numbers that you just threw at me. Go ahead,
I'm
yes.
saying that there's levels to time,
Yeah.
right? And the goal is to get back to the original day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7 until eventually Shabbos, and that's every day. I mean, like all days in one.
True. Very good. Very good. Can I have that Ben and Jerry's ice cream you're eating over there? Is that what's going on? Okay. Very good. Any last questions before we sign off? Nothing? Okay. Everybody, Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov. Light a candle for the Rebbe. Do a very fire hippo to do it on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Bezrat Hashem, the Rebbe should help you to inspire you to be able to have the most intimate, intense conversation with Hashem, to finally allow yourself to be as you really are, and to allow Hashem to be your best friend. And you should experience only good in your life. But you have an amazing night.
Chazak Baruch.